Grandpa, I'm studying about my roots in Hebrew school, and I would like to learn about your life and find out more about mine.
In order to acquaint you with the history of my life, I'll begin at my very childhood. I'll tell you the time where I was born, how we lived, and give you all the pertinent details that would be interesting for your research work. I was born in the town of Nemirov in 1896. I don't remember my very early years of my life, but I remember when I started school at the age of 5. I first went to the I first went by primary school for about 2 years, and then I went to a higher school, and I stayed there till I was 9 years old. At that time, my father died, and I had to stop school and go into my mother's store to help her and earning a living. I was there in the store for about 2 years, but I found out that it isn't the type of work I want to do, and I also had the urge to travel. And I finally decided that I want to go to a big city to get a little more worldly. And being my uncle on my father's side, my father's brother worked in the city of Chisinau, Romania, and Bessarabia at that time. I traveled, I went there, and I got a job. I stayed there for about a year and a half, and all of a sudden I got sick. And my mother found out about my sickness. She immediately came to fetch me home, and I was convalescing for a couple of months. Then I went back into the store to work. Conditions of living in our town were semi-civilized. We lived in plain houses built from wood and lime, and not the type of houses that you see in the modern cities of today, or even in our big cities. Rooms were very poorly furnished, just the mere necessities. And but it was a plain, simple life, but it was a quiet life. Most of the streets in our town were unpaved. In the fall, the mud was so deep there that you couldn't. You had to wear eyeglasses for that, in order to be not to sink into the mud. And only the main street of our town was paved, woodly paved with big stones, cobblestones, not like here, not like here in America. Our neighborhood consisted of it was somewhat multiracial. We had Jewish, we had Gentile, we had Polish, we had all kinds, all denominations were living in comparatively in peace. And there was no animosity shown, outspoken animosity shown amongst the races. And although there was no open anti-Semitism in those days, the lines between the ethnic groups were strictly drawn. There was no socializing amongst these different kinds of people. Let me tell you something about my early childhood. As far as games played on the other side, were very tame, just little softball, no baseball, very little baseball. No other sports were known in those days, like soccer and the other sports. Very little skating, and generally we led a sedate life, very inactive life. All our time was spent in learning and discussing and reading. We were a multilingual town. In our town we spoke 4 languages. We spoke Yiddish, little Hebrew amongst the students, and Russian, Ukrainian, and Polish. So one episode of my life that I'll never forget. It happened during the turbulent days of 1905 when the first Russian Revolution started against the Tsar. Of course, as we know now, the revolution ended in a fiasco in pogroms on Jewish populations, occasioned by all the anti-Semites that they were dormant until then. But in those days, they all showed up and they showed their true color. And there was some killed and some wounded, and robbed. They robbed all the stores. They went wild. They couldn't until they sent in some soldiers from a near garrison, and they quiet, and they put the town back into order, the situation back into order, and everything was quiet for a while. And then, as we know, the First World War started in 1913. That had a terrific impact on the entire population, especially on the Jewish, because they, as was well known, because of the anti-Semitism in Russia, the Jews felt that they did not want to get killed for the Tsar. And some of them, as the Tsar was the king of Russia, as everybody knows, and they tried to avoid the conscription as much as possible, but some of them had to go, especially among the poor population, that they couldn't get out of it. The wealthier one found some ways of putting off the conscription for a year or so. They figured maybe in that time maybe the war will be over. But as you know, the war lasted long enough to demand the services of all the young men of the Jews the war, as we know, lasted about 5 years, or 4.5 years, I don't remember exactly. And in 1917, as everyone knows, the revolution, the first revolution started. The second revolution started, but the Kerensky taking lead of that revolution, and he led it peacefully until the day when the communists came into the picture and they seized power, and then the trouble started for everyone. It started because we were small shopkeepers, and we ran our small business and free trading. And the free trading was everybody was doing some sort of business or was working. But once they came in, they forbade immediately a free market and free enterprise and free market. Nobody could conduct any business anymore freely because everything was, they started nationalizing down the entire industries and entire businesses. And we were small storekeepers. We felt immediately the oppression of this new edict, and we had to go into black marketeering like everybody else did in our town. Otherwise, they couldn't make a living. And we were doing pretty good. But all of a sudden, they caught me black marketing, and they put me in jail. It took a lot of effort and a lot of money to get free and get out of this jail, where I sat about 4 or 5 weeks until we bought ourselves out of this prison, paying briberies to the new communist officials. And when I came back to town, to my town, I told my mother immediately, said, "Mom, there's no more room for us in this country, in Russia, because we can't do business. How are we gonna? We have no trades. How are we gonna exist?" And things were very topsy-turvy, and everything was disordered, in a terrific disorder. And I suggested that, being that we have 2 uncles in Canada, I'll cross the border to Romania, where you can contact from there. You could contact the Western world. I'll get in touch with them and I'll see if they can do something for us to take us over to Canada. Of course, this is a long chapter. It didn't come so easy. It took us about two and a half years until they were able to get the money together to buy the tickets, the voyage tickets for us. When I mentioned tickets, I meant steamship tickets, because that's the only way you can go there by train, and then you had to cross the Atlantic. You got to cross the sea to get to Canada, and it took a long while and a lot of effort. For instance, according to the laws, according to the laws of Romania, of America, North America or Canada, an immigrant had to start out from his town of origin. And being that we were already in Romania, we didn't have any passports, so we had to get new passports for us, posing as Romanians. Because that also entails expenditures and entails a lot of work, a lot of running around, but finally we succeeded in that too. We finally we became Romanian citizens, and as such we were free to come into Canada. There was no trouble on that account. Let me mention something about the crossing of the border from Russia to Romania. As everyone knows, the geography, there's a river Danube dividing Russia from Romania. And we happened to go there in the springtime when the ice wasn't too heavy, too thick anymore. And of course you took your life into your hands by crossing at that time. But I was fortunate enough to make it, and we finally crossed it, and we came into a Romanian town. And there we met some of our landsleuten, some of our people that we. Some are. It's not only relatives. This was no relative. These were people from our town that they emigrated before the war. They emigrated to Romania, to Bessarabia, which was part of Russia at that time. But after it became a part of Romania after the war, after the First World War, Russia is ceded the Bessarabia, the province of Bessarabia, to Romania. And we finally crossed there, but some of our landslide crossed the same river, but a couple of weeks later, and they all drowned in the Danube, all the part of the family. When I was ready for the trip, I had to travel to Belgium, where I was to embark on a steamer in Antwerp. I'll never forget that voyage to the crossing of the sea. The steamer was a old, dilapidated ship, a very slow one. It took us about 13 days to cross it. And during that voyage, I was so sick. I couldn't take a morsel of food into my mouth. I only lived on some drinks. At that time of the year, of course, the seas were heavy seas there, and as I mentioned before, I was so sick that I don't even know what happened throughout the voyage. I didn't see anybody. I was lying on my cot there, and my compartment there. And just about the day before we reached Quebec, that's where we landed, I came to myself a little, and I could get up and walk around, but still was dizzy from that voyage. When I arrived November 21st, 1921, at the harbor of Quebec, not far from Montreal, where my uncle, on my father's side, the youngest uncle of my father's side, came to meet me there, and he brought me to Montreal, and we stayed there for a couple of days. And then my older uncle lived all the way out on the north in Cobalt. And I rested up for about 2 weeks, and then we started thinking about going out to make a living at something, because we still had my mother and my brother and my two sisters, and my brother-in-law. They still were in Romania, in Chisinau, and we still had to bring him over. So I was, after the 2 weeks, I started looking for a job. Of course, jobs are very scarce there because everybody's in business for himself. Of course, I also had a language difficulty because I didn't know the language at first when I arrived there, but it didn't take me too long. I grasped some of the English, but for some reason my uncles were living for a long while they were living in Quebec province, where the language of the spoken language was French. And so then I had to learn English and French. And when they thought that I would be better off if I started doing some business amongst the French. And they bought me a horse and wagon, or sled, and they sent me across the Temiskaming River from the province from Cobalt, which is Ontario, to the province of Quebec, where the population is strictly all French, most of them farmers, very few business people. There were some hotel keepers there, but as they call it, they call the maison de pension, the hotels, and I stopped there and I boarded with a French family. And living amongst the French, it took me no time, and I acquired enough French to conduct my business. So first I paddled for about a couple of months, calling on the farmers, offering my goods there, and until such a day when I decided I want to end the store. I don't want to travel anymore. and me and my older uncle opened up together, and I started selling the same merchandise that I used to peddle with. But we used to, and I used to go back to Cobalt every other week or every third week, until I saw I didn't see any future in that. Besides, I didn't feel at home amongst the few Jewish families that they lived in Cobalt. They were all Americans, and they weren't not exactly my type of people that I could associate with. And meanwhile, at this period of the story, my sister and my brother-in-law managed to, and my brother and my mother and sister managed to come to. The older sister came with her husband and with a child. They came to New York to their brother of theirs. And mother and my brother Leon and my sister Selma came to Cobalt to stay with us. We rented an apartment immediately, and we opened up. My mother was running the house, and the youngest sister Selma had to go to school to learn. She was at that age where she needed some more schooling, and we stayed down for a while, and then and we used to correspond with my sister, my brother-in-law, and I found out that for some reason New York would be a better place for us to live, socially and financially, because enough jobs for the type of business I was doing, paddling. There was always a demand for this, for young boys that are capable of carrying big packs on their shoulders and calling on people to buy from them. So after spending about a year and a half in Canada, we decided that it would be best for us that we go to the States, where there's a large Jewish community with all kind of societies. In fact, we had a society from our town. A lot of members that came to America before, and they had their own society, and they socialized. They socialized together, and they used to meet people of the same town. They had a common language. They had something to discuss. Coming from the same town, they knew each other from before. They knew the families, and it was a sort of fraternal organization. And I immediately joined them, and I on the second day after my arrival, they took me down to they took me from Brooklyn, where my sister lived. They took me to New York, where the most canvassing, most paddling was going on. At least the supply stores were situated on the east side of New York. They introduced me to a man named by the name Mr. Stein, and he immediately hired me. $50 salary the first week. And I started to paddle. I used to knock doors, and was pretty successful, so to speak, in my enterprise. In those days, the canvassers used to sell also for cash. The main sales, most of the sales were done on installment. But some customers, they wanted to buy. They had the money and they wanted to buy for cash, and they knew that for the cash they can make a bargain. They can get a merchandise a little less, which was the truth. And it was the custom was that time, whatever cash the canvasser was making belonged to him. That was above his wages that he got from the boss. And even in that, I was pretty successful. I was making every week about $15, $20 cash. So it brought up my income to about $35 a week. After working for about a year's time, and I got acquainted, learned knowing a little French from Canada, I also grasped the Italian language, which is somewhat similar to French, and I got pretty fluent enough to conduct my business in Italian. And I found it very easy to get along with the Italian people, which are very nice, very sociable people. They like to know, they like to find out your history, what kind of country you come from, and all that. And that's how you build goodwill. You get customers once and used to recommend me to the other. Until about I worked for about a year for Mr. Stein. And then I was getting older, and I decided that it's time to settle down. And in order to settle down, I can't work for somebody else because there wouldn't be enough to support a wife and a family. So I decided to go in business for myself. And I found it not difficult at all because the supply stores knew me already, and they immediately extended me enough credit to run my business. And so I made more money than before, of course, and I saved up a few $100s. And meanwhile, I met some girls, and I just by chance, I was introduced to my future wife, who came from the same town. We found it out after, of course, we didn't know before. Found out they also came from the same town, and they knew each other somewhat. We knew the families. We got engaged, and after a year's engagement, we got married. And Mom? Well, as I'm giving this information to my grandchild, my beautiful Jennifer, I'm a retired man of around 80. Of course, I'm still a little active for some reason, I don't know why. And I enjoy comparatively good health. I don't do much, but I do a lot of reading in several languages. I read fluent English, Hebrew, Yiddish, French, and as we got married, we got an apartment, our own apartment, and they built a nice home, and eventually my wife gave birth to two wonderful sons. The older one is Norman, who is a doctor and trained now, very successful in the field. And my younger son, Marty, in the Zoom I'm telling my beautiful Jennifer the story of my life. We are visiting now for Pesach, and we are very proud of our grandchildren, which are very, very beautiful and very talented. Very talented. And I think they inherited the taste for learning from from their grandfather. And so this is about the story of my life. And I thank God that He gave me longevity to witness the growth of my beautiful grandchildren, and have a lot of nachas in there. And that's about all. I wish it to everyone. Of course, my greatest pride are my grandchildren now, which are all talented and they all remain in the fold. That's something that I'm very thankful for. My older son's children are also the Jewish conscious, but not as much as my younger sons, the Martin Nichols family, which are very, very Jewish conscious. In fact, they went to Hebrew, they had all the whole bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, I was very happy to attend these occasions. It really gave me a lot of nachas, and I was proud of my grandchildren. I am proud of my grandchildren. Let them live and be well and continue the trend of following grandparents' steps to be good Jews and loyal to the nation and to Israel, and do the best they can in that field of Judaism.